Hi, my name is Lauren Hollows and this is Understand TAE's question of the week. So this week we are coming to you a little bit late because it's been absolutely bucketing here in Perth, and I've tried to record a few times out the back, and unfortunately the rain on the tin roof has disrupted our recording every time. So here we go. What I want to cover this week is I actually want to cover three of the common areas and the common questions that I get in relation to managing and maintaining your trainer currency. Specifically in relation to industry currencies is what we're going to be looking at this week. So we're going to be looking at three common myths or three questions that I get asked all the time, and I hope to kind of put an end and clarify that for some of you. So industry currency is very, very important. It's one of the kind of four areas that we need to cover as a trainer and assessor. So we've got, if we look down the left hand side, we've got our industry experience, and then on the right hand side we've got our vet. Then we've got competency across the top and currency along the bottom, sort of in a four diagonal, in a four box. When it comes to common non-compliances, industry currency is often one of those areas that gets pulled up. And there's a couple of really good reasons for this. One is because, with things like business trainers, you've got to have industry currency against marketing, against finance, against operations, against management, against communications, against advertising, there's against human resources, against IR, against WHS. So for somebody who's teaching like a diploma of leadership and management or a diploma of business or any of those sorts of qualifications, there's so many areas that actually need to be covered. And then when we come to some of our more practical skills, like for our carpenters and our civil construction people and our, chefs and things like that, it's not so much about how we consider our industry knowledge staying current. It's also about how often we're practicing our skills. So one of the common questions that I always get is in relation to knowledge. Does participating in groups, does reading magazines, does that count as industry currency? And like many of the things in vet, it's a bit of a yes and a no scenario. So yes, it can do, but then it depends on how you evidence it. So one of the things that I recommend is, if you're participating in LinkedIn groups and there's a good discussion and you contribute to that discussion, then you contributing to that discussion and the evidence of that, so the screenshot of you actually making comments and things, that is evidence of your industry participation. Taking shots of conversations that you're not participating in, it is very hard to determine from an auditor's perspective whether or not you're engaging in that material and how you're using that material to inform your practice. So if you're going to be doing things like, if you've got a lot of magazines that you often read and things like that, one of the things that I recommend is that you're actually reflecting on like a monthly or a quarterly basis on how what you're reading and what you're interpreting is actually affecting your practice. Now, if you're then making updates to your TAS, if you're making updates to your training materials, if you're making updates to the content of the course and you're recording that somewhere, then yes, all of that would would contribute towards your industry currency and your evidence of how you're evidencing your industry currency. So yes, it does count, but then it depends on how you then go about evidencing it. Purely saying that, look, I received this magazine, doesn't actually show how you engage in it, and therefore it does come under question by a lot of auditors, and rightly so. I mean, I can have 27 magazines delivered to my door, doesn't actually guarantee I'm going to read any of them, doesn't guarantee that I'm going to actually make any changes or amendments to my practice based on what I'm doing. So in relation to knowledge, think about how you're actually evidencing how you're updating your content based on what you're learning. The second one that I often get is in relation to currency of industry skills, and this is a really challenging one, and I completely understand that this is a hard one for both RTOs and students to manage. What I often get is things like, okay, if I am going out and doing some work on the weekends, if I am doing evidence of currency and practice, then what you want to be doing is looking at how you're evidencing that. We'll often get people who go, oh, well, look, I did a project for myself. I did an update to my kitchen. So, I I dismantled and I rebuilt the kitchen, or if it's a painter, I painted my house or something like that. Is that evidence of industry currency? I know that there are some compliance people out there who would turn around and say, no, because, there's no client, we're not guaranteeing how you're meeting industry standards, etc., etc. I actually disagree with that. If you are actively practicing the skills, again, it comes back to how you're evidencing it. But yes, I believe it does count as industry currency. Anytime you're practicing the skills, that contributes towards your currency. We do need to take into account how you're practicing those industry skills, because one of the arguments that then comes back is, well, look, I do it every day. So one of the things, again, that we want to ensure is that you're doing it to industry standards. So you're practicing those skills, but you're practicing them to industry standards. Now, if you're updating your kitchen, if you're painting your house, then, it would be expected that you're probably going to do it to the absolute best of your abilities. So, you can take some pictures of the finalized product and get that validated. If it's something that you're kind of doing every single day, one of the things that we recommend is actually going out and getting some industry experts to come in and look at validating that, because depending on the skills that you're doing, it can actually be very difficult to, then go out and actually get those and practice those on the workplace. If we're talking about things like civil construction, about OHS, there are risk factors that become involved, and so all of a sudden, in order to actually go out and participate in work experience, you need to be inducted. There could be insurance factors which would limit you being able to participate in some of those scenarios. Certainly when it comes to some of the more dangerous units and things like that, a lot of workplaces just aren't comfortable with those skills, but you can then get industry experts to come in, and then they can assess you almost as if it's like a third-party verification of competency. Now, when you go about evidencing that, how you go about evidencing that is really important, because it's about making sure that you're capturing all of the skills and that you're capturing them to a sufficient level of detail. The last one that I want to talk about is actually looking at sort of covering everything or covering little bits. So one of the things that I encourage my trainers and assessors to do is that we kind of do monthly reviews. As you guys would know, we track all of our trainers' competencies online through a system that I've built with Accelerate. And it's really, really easy to kind of just upload evidence to those particular units. You can do the same thing going through your trainer matrix. So, one of the things you want to look at doing is sort of what have you kind of done this month, and look at those skills and look at it relevant to those units. Now, you might not cover an entire unit with a particular activity. You might only cover the knowledge. You might only cover the practical skills. You might only cover part of the practical skills, because certainly there's a lot of those kind of common core skills that might come up over and over and over again when you're looking at doing things like planning, when you're looking at doing things like cleaning up, when you're looking at, acting in line with occupational health and safety or sustainability, effective communication. If you do some PD on effective communication, that may roll out across, a dozen units that you deliver. WHS may roll out across every single unit that you deliver. So, don't feel that your activities have to cover absolutely everything within the unit. The important part is that, over the course of the year or 2 years, you are making sure that you're covering all the components of the unit, but you don't have to do everything in one hit. Little bits on a regular basis are much better than trying on an annual basis to cover everything in one hit, because even most jobs, if you're returning to industry, will not cover absolutely everything in a qualification. Qualifications are big, they're complex, they're complicated. So it is really good if you can kind of piecemeal some of that and do little bits throughout the year, as opposed to getting it all done in one hit. Otherwise, at the end of the day, as trainers, you guys need to understand your units back to front and start having the arguments, start having the discussions about how you are maintaining your currency, interpret the standards for yourselves, and have these open and active debates, because that's actually how you grow your knowledge. It's how the compliance team grows their knowledge, and it's how you all come to kind of this conclusion, because at the end of the day, if you can argue it to an ASCA auditor and feel comfortable that you're doing the right thing, then, that's exactly what you're looking for, is you're looking for feeling comfortable with that. I hope this helps. Have a great weekend. And this is Lauren Hollis from Understand TAE. Thanks. Bye.